Your dog knocks over the trash. You walk into the kitchen. He freezes. He lowers his head. He won't meet your eyes. His tail tucks. His ears drop. He looks, to anyone who has ever lived with a dog, perfectly, painfully guilty. Surveys show that around 71% of dog owners are absolutely convinced their dogs feel guilt. About 14% of animal psychologists agree. The gap between those two numbers is one of the most interesting puzzles in modern animal science. But for 99% of scientific history, this didn't exist. No experiments, no frame-by-frame video analysis, no way to test whether the dog was actually feeling shame, or whether the dog was simply terrified of being yelled at. For 200,000 years, we have assumed that guilt was one of the most uniquely human emotions our brain ever produced. So do animals really feel guilty? Do they care that they did something wrong? Do they apologize when they hurt each other? Do they comfort each other when something goes wrong? The answer is more chemical, more social, and more humbling than most people imagine. Let's start with the most famous case. In 2009, the psychologist Alexandra Horowitz, founder of the Dog Cognition Lab at Barnard College in New York, published a study in the journal Behavioral Processes that took apart the most universal idea in dog ownership. Horowitz brought dogs and their owners into her lab. She set up a simple protocol. The owner told the dog not to eat a treat, then left the room. While the owner was gone, Horowitz sometimes let the dog eat the treat. Sometimes she removed the treat herself so the dog could not eat it. When the owner returned, Horowitz lied to them. She sometimes told the owner the dog had behaved when it had actually eaten the treat. She sometimes told the owner the dog had disobeyed when in fact it had not. The cameras captured the dogs. The results were brutal. The famous guilty look had nothing to do with whether the dog had actually done anything wrong. The look appeared whenever the owner believed the dog was guilty. A perfectly innocent dog whose owner scolded it produced the most dramatic guilty face of all. And the dogs that showed the strongest guilty look were the ones whose owners had previously punished them with their hands. The dog was not feeling shame for misbehaving. The dog was reading anger in your voice and trying to make itself small enough to survive it. Decades of dog owners had been misreading their best friend's face. The dog was not confessing. The dog was begging. The famous guilty look is not guilt. It is fear. But that does not mean animals feel nothing when they break a bond. In 1979, the Dutch primatologist Frans de Waal, then still a doctoral student at the University of Utrecht, was studying a colony of chimpanzees at the zoo in Arnhem in the Netherlands. He had been watching them for months when he noticed something almost nobody had bothered to write down. After a fight, the chimpanzees did not just walk away. They came back. Often, the same two males who had been beating on each other minutes earlier would find each other again, sit close, and then do something that broke decades of primate research. They kissed. They embraced. They held hands. They sat quietly together. De Waal published his observations that year in the journal Behavioral Ecology and Sociobiology. He used a word that no scientist had ever applied to non-human animals: reconciliation. The community resisted the word at first. It sounded too human. 40 years and hundreds of follow-up studies later, the word has become the standard term in the field. Chimpanzees, after they hurt each other, deliberately repair what they broke. They may not feel guilt the way you do when you snap at your partner, but they know the bond is damaged, and he walks straight toward it to fix it. That, in any species, is closer to morality than most words for it. Dogs do something similar without the philosophy. The biologist Mark Bekoff at the University of Colorado spent more than 30 years studying play behavior in canids, especially in wild coyotes. He noticed a tiny gesture that almost every dog owner has seen and almost nobody has named: the play bow. The dog lowers its chest, sticks its rear in the air, and looks straight at its play partner. Beckhoff showed that the play bow is one of the most reliable, honest signals in the entire animal kingdom. It means, precisely, what follows is play, not a real attack. Dogs and coyotes use the play bow before they start, during play to keep the contract going, and crucially, right after they have bitten too hard. The bow becomes a kind of apology. Sorry, did not mean to actually hurt you. Still playing. Beckhoff also documented something darker: canids self-handicap during play. A coyote does not bite a smaller partner at full strength. They take turns being the loser. And the ones who cheat, who refuse to play fair, who consistently break the rules, are systematically excluded by the rest of the group. In long-term field studies, Beckhoff found that juvenile coyotes who failed to play fairly were roughly 4 times more likely to die than coyotes who respected the rules of the game. Fairness is not a civilized human invention. It is a survival code that coyotes have been running on the prairie for several million years. A child can learn this from a dog without ever opening a book. The rules are simple: play fair, apologize when you hurt, or leave the group. Now move to a body that nobody expected to do this kind of thing: the elephant. In February of 2014, the primatologist Joshua Plotnick, who runs an organization called Think Elephants International, published a study in the journal Peer J. He had spent months observing a herd of Asian elephants at an elephant camp in Thailand. He focused on what happened when one elephant became distressed, frightened by a snake, a stranger, a sudden noise. The other elephants did not flee. They did not ignore the distressed animal. They approached. They gently touched its face with their trunks. They placed their trunks softly into the distressed elephant's mouth, a gesture of extreme physical intimacy in elephant behavior. They rumbled and chirped reassurance. Plotnick's paper became the first formal documentation of consolation behavior in elephants. Until then, true consolation, defined as freely offered comfort to a distressed individual, had been documented mainly in great apes, in some corvids, and in canids. Now, elephants were on the list. 3 completely separate evolutionary branches, separated by tens of millions of years, all reaching out to comfort someone they could see was scared. Consolation is not a primate luxury. It is something the mammalian brain seems to come back to on its own. Whenever a body that loves other bodies exists for long enough, it eventually figures out how to comfort them. And then there are the bonobos. In 2013, the researchers Zanna Clay and Franz de Waal, working at the Lolaya Bonobo Sanctuary in the Democratic Republic of Congo, published a paper in PLOS One that quietly reframed the whole conversation. They studied how bonobos responded to friends and family in distress. The behavior they recorded was almost gentle to watch. After a fight or frightening event, bonobos would walk over to the upset individual and hug them, groom them, kiss them. Sometimes they would engage in calming sexual contact, a uniquely bonobo response. The juveniles consistently showed the strongest consolation responses. Young bonobos, still too small to dominate or fight effectively, were the ones doing most of the comforting. That finding broke a long-standing assumption in psychology, which held that consolation required advanced cognitive maturity. Apparently, it does not. Empathy comes online very early. Bonobo children console grieving adults, and measurements of stress hormones showed that the comfort actually worked. The recipient calmed down faster when consoled than when left alone. So what is actually happening inside these animals? When a social bond breaks, every mammal we have studied shows the same chemical pattern. Cortisol rises, oxytocin drops. The body registers the rupture as a kind of physiological injury. The dog whose owner is angry is not telling itself in words, "I have done something wrong." It is feeling, in chemistry, the bond with my human is unsafe. The chimpanzee that walks back toward the rival he just attacked is not silently rehearsing a moral lesson. He is feeling the chemistry of broken connection, and his body is pushing him to repair it. The elephant that touches the face of his frightened cousin is doing the same thing, in another form with a different shape. The exact human experience of guilt, with its language, its narrative replay, its self-judgment, may indeed be unique to us. But the underlying machinery, the awareness that a bond has been damaged, and the impulse to mend it is not. It is one of the oldest emotional systems in the animal kingdom. For 200,000 years, we assumed we were the only species on this planet with a moral life. The science of the last 50 years has told a far more interesting story. The dog at your feet is not feeling the same guilt you would feel after lying to a friend, but it is feeling, in real chemistry, the same dread of being separated from the people it loves. The chimpanzee that holds the hand of his former enemy, the coyote that bows an apology after biting too hard, the elephant that lays his trunk against the cheek of a grieving sister, the young bonobo that quietly grooms a frightened friend until she breathes evenly again. None of them feel guilt the way we do. All of them feel something that pushes them toward repair. We did not invent the conscience. We just gave it a name. The actual feeling, the chemistry of caring whether you hurt someone you love, has been around far longer than us. Every animal that ever bonded with another animal has had to evolve some version of it. A species without that instinct would have no friendships, no families, no peace after fights, no way of staying together long enough to raise anyone. And every animal at your feet, in your yard, in the forest beyond your window, has been quietly practicing a form of moral repair that we are still trying to remember how to do.